Welcome back to the channel. I'm very happy to have you here. My name is Conor McMillen. I'm an IFS trained life coach. I've been practicing this work for about 10 years. Did my training 10 years ago, been practicing for 10 years, and I'm still just super pumped about this model. In today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 books that I hope can inspire you to continue to dive into IFS work. We're going to start with the kind of most basic IFS book and progress into some deeper levels of IFS. But all of them work really well symbiotically. So if you wanted to get all 3 and kind of progress in the same order, I would recommend that. If one sticks out to you and you're really excited about, just go for that and you'll definitely get something out of it. So the first book that I would recommend starting with, especially if IFS is still pretty new to you, is Introduction to Internal Family Systems. And that makes sense, right? This would be a great place to start if you're getting introduced to this model. But it's also a great book, just period. I think it's a really nice book to have on hand for someone who's been doing IFS for maybe some time, to have a place that you can kind of refer to. And it's not boring, is the nice thing about really all of these books. But you would think with a title like Introduction to Internal Family Systems, it sounds a little dry. I didn't find it dry at all. It's a really good book. When I did my training 10 years ago, they required this stack of reading. I think it was 4, maybe 5 books. And I wanted to do a really good job, and I bought all the books and I read all of them. And then when I got to the training, I asked people, how were the books for you? And no one that I talked to at the training had read the books. So that was kind of funny. But this was one of them that was in that pile 10 years ago, and it's still a great read for today. So opening up the contents just briefly here, in every single chapter there are exercises, and that's something I love about a lot of the IFS books that are out there, especially the ones authored by Richard Schwartz. There are exercises that you can try out on your own at home to sort of be in the practice, not just read it and understand it mentally, but actually practice it in your body. So every chapter has some exercises. It kind of starts out with the internal family systems model. You got a section on self, on parts. You go a little deeper into exiles, managers, and firefighters. And then they talk about the therapeutic model. If you already know a lot about IFS, you could probably skip this. But like I said, I think it's still a good book to just kind of have around and flip through to get inspired or to remind yourself what this model is really all about. Second book that I want to talk about today is Richard Schwartz's most recent book, No Bad Parts. You've probably seen this book if you've been poking around IFS stuff, because it's new, and I think it's really good. It's a really amazing book. You might want to just skip the introduction to internal family systems and go right for No Bad Parts, because Richard does a great job in this book for people across the spectrum of IFS knowledge. I'm been doing it for 10 years, and this book was still really, really good for me, really inspiring and beautiful. And I think if I had picked this book up without knowing anything about IFS, it would also be really good. I actually sent this book to my mom, and she's reading it now. She knows a bit about IFS, of course, because I've spoken to her a lot about it. But this is the first book that she's really read on the topic, and she said she's really enjoying it a lot. What I really love about this book is, similar to the Introduction to Internal Family Systems, there are a lot of exercises, but there's also a lot of real experiences working with clients. There is a little bit of that in the introduction book as well. This book has a lot of it. Almost every chapter, there's a section where Richard and a client are doing work together, and you get to read how that process actually goes. One recommendation I would have is get the book in written form and also get it in audio form. That's a powerful way to absorb information even better, is to listen to the audiobook while you read it. But the audiobook is really great because even though it's narrated by someone else, Richard's voice is in it also quite a bit. And the sessions that are done, my understanding is they are reenacted, but they are following a script. So even though it's reenacted and, maybe it's a little corny because it's reenacted, you still get the flavor of like, this is what IFS can look like. In this most recent book, Richard Schwartz also brings up psychedelics quite a few times. And I think that's a really fantastic thing to be bringing into the space. As more research is coming out on the therapeutic nature of psychedelics, I think it's an incredibly valuable thing to at least be bringing curiosity to. And it may not be for you, but I'm really glad that Richard Schwartz took the time to put some attention on it, because it's such a growing field that many people now are interested in. And, I was curious to hear from Richard, how does he see it assisting IFS? And he does go into that in quite some detail. So that's really neat. And then, of course, there are a ton of exercises. The audio version, the exercises, I think all of them are read or narrated by Richard Schwartz himself. So you also get his voice, and he's really good. Really nice to listen to. So he does a great job. Highly recommend No Bad Parts. Really wonderful book. And the last one is actually my personal favorite. I recommend it to almost every client that I'm working with, and that is You Are the One You've Been Waiting For. So this book was written, as it says here on the title, Applying Internal Family Systems to Intimate Relationships. So it was kind of written for partnerships, and I read it when I was single, and I got so much out of it. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're single, if you're partnered, if there's other relationships in your life that you feel are intimate and qualify in this work. It really doesn't matter. I think it's an incredibly valuable book for everyone. And what I love about this book is there's a ton of stories, a lot of information, but a ton of stories. And it's a really easy, fun, and deep piece of work, and it really goes into how our parts react with other people's parts and why we show up in relationship the way that we do based on IFS. So it gives you a really unique perspective on the IFS model. And I think if you are currently in relationship or you want to be in relationship, this book is going to help you so much. Have more self-awareness, not just for you, but for the relationship itself. When I read this book about 10 years ago, I read maybe 2 or 3 pages a day or a night. I would often read it in bed. And the reason I read it so slowly is that I really needed the time to integrate the material. I don't know that I would read it that slowly today, because I've integrated a lot of stuff and I have a lot of experience with IFS. But I would really encourage you with this book or with any IFS book to notice if your system would prefer that you just go nice and slow. Because something to keep in mind is that these books, they're not something to get through and then you've read the book and that's the accomplishment. These books are meant to help you deepen your connection with yourself. And if you want to read a page at a time, and through that process, your connection with yourself is deeper than if you read the whole thing in a week, I highly recommend you do that. It's likely that as you read material based on IFS, as you watch videos like this one based on IFS, as you listen to podcasts, and certainly as you start working the model either with yourself or an IFS professional, that parts of you are going to emerge. And those parts may need you to slow things down. So highly encourage you to notice that whenever you're taking in IFS material. How slowly can you go? And are there any parts of you that you notice have an urgency? Like, oh, we got to finish this book and then things will be better. Try to ask that part to relax and to slow down with you and with your other parts to really be in the material. So these are my 3 book recommendations. Of course, you can head over to internalfamilysystems.org and find some other material over there, including programs that you can become your own IFS therapist, your own IFS guide, and do some deeper work on yourself. I've listed all the links to the books down below through Amazon. Most of the books are $16 or something like that. And if you do use those links, we get, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 cents per purchase. So it's a way that you can support the channel if you're going to buy a book anyway. And as always, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I recommend you do that now because I do come out with new content all the time. I'll see you at the next one. Hope you have a beautiful day. Talk to you soon.